Paddy Power are gearing up for Cheltenham and offering non-runner money back on all races at the Cheltenham 2018 Festival. Paddy Power, you beauty! Applies from midday on January the 9th. T's and C's apply. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.
Hello and welcome to this Cheltenham Anti-Post Postcast. This week we're covering the big handicaps throughout the festival. I'm Maddie Plough. I'm joined in the studio by James Hill. We've also got Brendan Duke on the line, and Rob Catterson from Paddy Power as well is joining us. We're going to go straight in there on the Tuesday, where we've got the Ultimate and the Close Brothers Novices Handicap Chase. Paddy Power, I believe, a non-runner no bet on all 28 races now. But we're going to simply say, Jimmy, what is your best bet in the handicaps on day one?
I think it would probably be Gold Present in the Ultima. I know that they've been talking about the Grand National being his main target, but I think they've probably kept this race in the back of their minds as well. Looks to have a decent profile for this. I mean, he's been progressive, winning his 2 races this season, and his win at Ascot, the form's worked out very well. Frodon, the second, has won since then, and also I think the 6th Yalarenki has won as well. So that looks pretty good form. We know he's got good festival form, having finished placed in the Close Brothers last year. And Nicky Henderson's come pretty close to winning this quite a few times in the last 10 years. So he'd be the one for me.
Brendan, what's your handicap nap on day one?
It's in the Ultimate as well, because I was a little bit worried at the front end of the market, horses like the Storyteller and Gold Present, that they wouldn't run. So I wanted something that would almost certainly run. Dingo Dollar, it's his only entry at the meeting. Now, they mentioned that he's only a 6-year-old and that it might be too much for him, but Cheltenham's like a siren on the rocks, isn't it? It's a lure that's hard to resist. So I thought that they'd run him in the Ultimate. I think he's on a fair mark. He's unexposed. He's a wicked jumper. And I think he'd be able to travel on the pace, which is important in these races. I thought he'd go close.
Okay, fantastic. So Dingo Dollar for Brendan. Anything catch your eye quickly in the other race on day one, the Close Brothers, Jimmy?
Yeah, I like Colondra in that race. He was very impressive at Cheltenham in December, and he's also got a big field form at the festival. He ran very well in the Coral Cup last year. I think he's only about £3 higher or something for that win in December, so he's still well treated. And if you can forgive his run at Sandown last time, yeah, he'd have every chance. Good jumper.
Yeah, and of course Tully East won this last year. Brendan, it again looks ridiculously competitive this time around. Any fancies for you?
I thought Rather B was on a fair mark. I didn't think he was thrown in or anything, but so little is. The weight bands in these races is about £4. So it's almost like a conditions race. I thought Rather B, despite that mishap in Plumpton, is a pretty sound jumper, and I thought he'd go well.
Rob, what are your thoughts, just reversing a little bit on the Close Brothers and the Ultima? How do you bet on those, and what do you think is going to be the one to beat?
Yeah, well, the Ultimate, obviously, it's always competitive. You generally need a good horse to win this. We're 8-1 Gold Present. We're 9-1 Kustar Sola. It's 10 single fare payments and Monbig Notorious 11's bar. I don't know if he runs, but I'd give American a big chance here. I thought he ran very well at Cheltenham in January. The race had definitely read one. Coming down the hill, he looked the most likely winner. He either hit a flat spot or something happened, because he stayed on again for second. You need a good horse with plenty of class to win this. We're best priced 20s, non-runner, no bet. I'd give him a big chance in that. And one of my best bets of the week in the handicaps is any second now in the Close Brothers Novices Chase. It looks as though he's going to run here. We've seen support for him. It looks as though it's going to be a pretty compressed handicap as well. I'd say there could be only £3 or £4 separating the whole field. And don't be surprised if Ruby's on this, because Move with the Times is in the race as well. And Barry Garrity could be riding him. So any second now for Ted and Ruby Walsh, one of the bets of the week in the handicap, the Close Brothers. So
we'll move on to the Wednesday, where we have the Coral Cup and the Fred Winter. In the Coral Cup, only 2 horses in the last 10 years have won with single-figure SPs. So it might pay to pick something at a bigger price. Jimmy, have you picked something towards that end of the market?
Yeah, I narrowly prefer Spirit of the Games over William Henry. William Henry's probably going to go off at a single figure price, like you said, and I think Spirit of the Games represents better value. He's, I think, £3 better off for that run in the Lanzarote. That's a race that's really working out. I think that's top form, and he ran well as well in the Betfair Hurdle, so I think he'll go very close. Okay,
fantastic. Brendan, have you got a particular race you're looking at on day 2?
Well, again, Well, perhaps perhaps I like top of the game as well, but perhaps I'll go for the Fred Winter Oxford Blue for young tyro Ollie Murphy. I thought he ran particularly well in a strong heat for Market Race, and he was beaten by a well-handicapped horse. I must give some credit to my learned friend Frank Hickey, who told me to have a look at this horse. And I thought he jumped really well until the last 2 hurdles, which ultimately cost him the race. But he's a lovely way going. He is a sound jumper. They're going to put blinkers on him. I think he's a pretty hardy horse. I think he'll handle the rough and tumble of it, and he's about 25 to 1. It looks a fair price to me.
Okay, I was going to mention the last 6 winners, their prices read 33 to 1, 13 to 2, 25 to 1, 33 to 1, 25 to 1, 40 to 1. So if you fancy something at a big price in the Fred Winter, don't be alarmed. Jimmy, anything in the Fred Winter that you particularly
not anything really at those biggish prices, Matt. So, I mean, I do think Nube Negro has got to have a big chance. He was very, very impressive winning at Doncaster last time. I know he was odds on, but the assessor hasn't raised him for that, and good form earlier in the season. And on softer ground, which is looking likely at this stage, Lisp would have a good chance for Alan King. I thought that should have won last time, but for a mistake at Haydock. So I think that's got a good chance as well, each way.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back to cover all of the action on Thursday.
Paddy Power are gearing up for Cheltenham and offering non-runner money back on all races at the Cheltenham 2018 Festival. Paddy Power, you beauty! Applies from midday on January the 9th. T's and C's apply. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.
Okay, welcome back to the Cheltenham Anti-Post Postcast. This week, of course, we're covering all the big handicaps. There's just 1 week to go. We're now on to the Thursday, where we've got 3 races to get stuck into. We've got the Potemps Network Final Handicap Hurdle, the Brown Advisory and Meribel Stable Plate Handicap Chase, and, of course, the Kim Muir Challenge Cup for amateur riders. That's a handicap chase. We see a lot of returning heroes here, including Tully East in the Plate, and Maldini is favoured in the Kim Muir. He, of course, won the Potemps. Jimmy, any race in particular that you're thinking, I've got one for that and it's definitely going to win?
Yes, no, well, I don't know about definitely going to win, but Scuateur in the Kim Muir, I mean, I thought he would have won last year's race had he not unshipped at the top of the hill. Thought he was going well at the time. And he's more experienced now. He ran very well in the Paddy Power over Christmas. I think he's got plenty going for him off the same mark as he ran off 12 months ago. So, yeah, I mean, Scuateur would have as good a chance as any on the Thursday.
OK, brilliant. And Rob, how do you bet on that race?
Yeah, the Kim Muir, so Scuateur's obviously been favoured for quite some time. He unseated in the race last year. We make him the 11-2 market leader. Obviously, Maldini has been pushing him for favouritism. He's a 6-1 chance. It's 10-1 Sugar Bar. I think Katie Walsh rides that, and 12 is Bar, but it's pretty competitive.
And do you have opinion on the race, Rob?
Scuateur's plenty short enough for a horse who's had his jumping problems. I think this is the big chance for Maldini. He was fancy for this race last year. Things didn't go right, and he was staying on 5th. And I think they've kept him all year for this particular race. There was talk he might go for the 4-miler, but I think the fact that they're going for this, they obviously see a good opportunity. So Maldini looks very solid.
Okay, fantastic. And Brendan, who's your selection on the Thursday?
Yeah, I didn't have a particularly strong opinion on any of the 3 races. Poor show. I thought Dad's in Trouble, an old friend of mine, had a squeak. He's 33-1 for the Potemps. He's still got a mark in the mid-130s. I definitely think he can be competitive off that. He didn't take the chase, and he just can't jump fences. He travelled really well in Exeter the last day. I think he has form on bad ground, granted, but Exeter heavy ground could become really cloying, and I think it just bogged him down in the end. I think he'd be better on the spring ground, and I could see him running the fair race at a big price.
Can we get some betting on the Potemps so Brendan knows what price he can get about Dad's in Trouble?
Yeah, as Brendan said, he's a pretty big price. He's at 33-1 chance. As we stand in the Potemps, we're 8-1 Glenlow. It's 9-1 Louis Vac Pouch for Philip Hobbs. 10-1 Sorted Out, who was an eye catcher at Punchestown. We're 12's Forza Milan, the Organist, and Who Dares Wins, and 14's Bar. OK, and have you got particular opinion on that Potemps? It's always a very difficult heat to figure out, isn't it? It is. I don't think we have a presenting Percy in it last year. He obviously was a handicapped lot. Just on his run the last day, I thought Sorted Out now looked as though he's been primed for this. You got to remember, he was second to Wicklow Brave in a county hurdle 3 years ago. And the way he ran at Punchestown the last day shows me that they're lining him up for something, and the Thames could be the race for him. So sorted out at about 10-1.
Okay, I want to mention the plate, of course, because Tully East, who won the Close Brothers last year, is fancied for this. Of course, Road to Respect won it last year. He's emerged as a Gold Cup contender this year, possibly. Jimmy, it's obviously a race that produces a good horse. Anything take your fancy in that race?
Well, I'd be interested to know if the lads know anything about whether Tombstone's going to make the trip over. He, of course, is owned by Gigginstown, as was Road to Respect and the previous winner, Empire of a Dud. They both absolutely hosed up in this. I think Tombstone's interesting. I mean, he was a hot favourite for the Coral Cup 12 months ago. He was very disappointing that day. But he does have festival form from the Supreme Novices 2 years ago. And I think his chase mark is about £2 lower than his hurdle mark from 12 months ago. So he's definitely well treated at his best. And the right good Tombstone turning up would be very interesting in this.
Tombstone, he's got that back class, as you say. Brendan, are you in agreement? Do you know anything on Tombstone that you can enlighten us with?
No, I don't. I was racking my brains, and I thought he had an injury there about a month to 6 weeks ago. I'd have to go and check that, though. But the fact they've entered him in the handicaps would suggest that they're thinking about it anyway, so it can't be too serious an injury. Yeah, he's a very talented horse. I'm not sure he relishes the heat of battle, but he definitely, you can definitely make a case from on a handicapping point of view. In the race itself, I thought Tully East had a really strong chance. I mean, he's £8 higher than last year, but that was a cracking race, as you'd expect in a Cheltenham handicap. Really strong form. Travelled like a dream in the Bet Victor. Again, just slightly got bogged down in the ground. Should have his conditions on the Thursday, and I thought he was a worthy fav.
Okay, fantastic. We'll move now on to the Friday, and of course the main race there is the Randox Health County Handicap Hurdle at 2:10. Can we have a full show of betting on this, please, Rob?
Yeah, as it stands, we're 6-1 Max Dynamite, 8-1 Hunter's Call, 12-1 about Flying Tiger, Countess Stir, Sand Send, and Blue A Rouge. We're 14s to Hairbreath, Ivanovic Gorbatov, and Call Me Lord, and we're 16s bar.
Okay, plenty of former winners in this field, as you'd imagine. Of course, Flying Tiger won the Fred Winter, Ivanovic Gorbatov, previous Triumph Hurdle winner. Jimmy, which way are you looking at this stage?
Well, I was impressed enough with Chesterfield the other day, winning that Jumpers Bumper at Kempton. And he's now back to a decent mark. I think it's £3 lower than his mark, which won the Scottish Champion Hurdle. We know he thrives at this time of the year. He goes very well in the spring. And he has won a race at Cheltenham before. So, I mean, this is very, very competitive, but I can certainly see him going very close.
Okay, and Brendan, are you in agreement with Jimmy on that one?
I certainly am. I backed him yesterday. He basically stole my notes, so I haven't got much more to say. He's a very likeable horse, and I thought he'd run well. The Ollie Murphy horse, whose name always escapes me, Hunter's Call. That's seriously strong form. It was but I wasn't sure that race was going to work out actually, because it was a bit of a crawl, and I wasn't sure if the form could be trusted. But it couldn't be working out much better. They've gone the Superb Story route with him. The Skeleton had Superb Story, finished second in the Greatwood, left him off for this, and then won it. Then he tried it last year again, and he names but the horse who won the Greatwood and was favourite for this. He's a chaser now. Anyway, so Murphy has done this, and he's left him off. They obviously think he's on a good mark, but I think Chesterfield 25-1 is a big price.
Okay, and do you think, not running these horses, of course, not giving their handicap mark chance to go up is the way to prepare a horse for a race like this, or do you prefer to see them out and active?
I think if you think that they're on a winning mark, I wouldn't jeopardise it. I mean, well, I would jeopardise it. I would have run them in the I was going to say the Stoke Gold Trophy, the Betfair Hurdle, should I say? I would have run them in that because it's such a big prize. But the owners and connections are generally obsessed with Cheltenham. So if you want to win a race at Cheltenham, I think the thing to do is to put the horse away and don't jeopardise the mark.
Okay, understandably so, saving for the big day. Now, the Martin Pipe Conditional Jockeys Handicap Hurdle is at 450. We've seen some excellent winners of that in recent years, including the likes of Dom Poley. The last favourite to win was actually Sir Deschamps back in 2011. Rob, how do they bet on this one?
Yeah, recent supporting days has seen Flawless Escape for Gordon Elliott, now favoured at 7-1. We're 8-1 Duke de Genève. He obviously has plenty of options. 10-1 DS de Bieuf in the same colours. 10-1 also Hunter's Call. We're 12s the likes of Ben Dundee, Dortmund Park, and Max Dynamite, along with What's Wrong With You and Whiskey Sour and 14's Bar.
Okay. Rob, do you have a particular opinion on the Martin Pipe?
Yeah, I've backed Flawless Escape at bigger prices. This race, obviously, Gordon's always targeted. He was lining up the Storyteller for it last year, and he obviously got injured, and he ended up still winning with Champagne Classic. His third behind Total Recall reads very well, and I think the 7-1 about this lad on the day could be big. I think the money's still good. There's going to be more money for this lad, and I think Gordon's lined up this lad for one of his best handicap plots of the week. Okay,
Brendan, are you a Flawless Escape fan?
No, I quite like that DS de Bieuf. I was given, if the cap fits, a right chance of the Supreme before he came out. And then, as James mentioned, the Lanzarote form is really strong as well. So 5th there is no harm. He's £2 higher than that. I like stamina in this race. I don't think it's any harm to be proven over the trip. And this horse looks like he can get 3 miles. Wouldn't be surprised if the boy James Bowen got the ride, given Henderson's done him a couple of turns this year. So that would be an advantage as well. I thought he ticked a lot of boxes.
Okay, decent beefs for Brendan. Jimmy, any fancy in the Martin Pipe?
I think that there's been a bit of money for early doors over the last few days, and that's very interesting because he's got some very good pieces of form from earlier in the season. He was second in the Royal Bond to Mengli Khan, and if he reproduced that form, I think he'd have every chance here. He was given an initial mark of 1:42 for that run, and I think that's actually the mark he's running off this time. So, yeah, early doors, we don't know if he's going to get this sort of trip, but if he was able to stay, I think the course would suit him. It would help his jumping a bit, which isn't the best, and he's definitely got the ability.
Okay. We'll just go for a quick advert now before we talk about the Grand Annual, which, of course, signs off the entire festival.
Paddy Power are gearing up for Cheltenham and offering non-runner money back on all races at the Cheltenham 2018 Festival. Paddy Power, you beauty! Applies from midday on January the 9th. T's and C's apply. 18+. BeGambleAware.org.
Okay, welcome back to this postcast. We're going to be talking about the Grand Annual, and then after that we'll get the lads' best each way bets and handicap naps for the week. But first we will talk about that aforementioned Grand Annual Handicap Challenge Cup chase, which is at 5:30. Rob, how do you bet on this one?
Yeah, we're 8-1 the field. Just speaking of the Martin Pipe, by the way, Joseph O'Brien, a preview a couple of nights ago, indicated that early doors would run in the Martin Pipe and JJ Slevin will ride him, so that's probably good news for James. And there could be a JP winner of the Grand Annual as well. We're 8-1 Don't Touch It, who's arguably been one of the best backed horses so far in this. It's 10's Vanna 2 and Thienvel, both for Nicky, who's bidding to win the race for the first time. 12-1 Patrick's Park, Ordinary World, and last year's winner Rock the World, and 14's Bar.
Okay, and Rob, before we get to the others, who would your fancy be in this one?
Yeah, it's boring now because he's favourite, but I've been all over Don't Touch It for the last couple of weeks. You got to remember, he's a Grade 1 winner as a novice hurdler. He won at the Punchestown Festival last season, and I think Jesse's gone on record to say this has been the target all season. They're going to put cheap pieces on him as well, and to me, this is his Gold Cup. It's Don't Touch It, and there's no way he'll be 8th on the day.
Okay, that's very interesting from Rob. Jimmy, Grand Annual, it's a bit of a sad time for most of us. It's the last race.
Last race, yeah. We've got to wait another 12 months for it to all happen again. But anyway, we can worry about that later. I think this race, it's one of my favourite handicaps, but this year, I actually like 2 outsiders. Neither are certain to get in. In fact, probably one of them won't. But Do It for the Village is one who I like. He won at Cheltenham at the November meeting nicely. I think he's only £4 higher for that and has a progressive profile. And Calypso, I know he's been disappointing this season. He's actually £10 lower than when he was 6th last year. And okay, he's got jumping problems, but I think 3 of his 5 best RPRs have been at Cheltenham. So chances are he won't get in, but if he did, he'd be interesting at a big price.
Okay, big prices, 2 big prices, what we like. Brendan, do you agree with Rob on the Grand Annual and Don't Touch It, or are you looking elsewhere?
Well, I do agree with Rob in the sense that he won't go off the colour of 8-1 because it's funny, there's always something that collapses. The Desperados trying to get out, of course. There's always something collapses in this race. Last year, it was Le Président, and this is the absolute last time. I'm going to give Le President one last chance because these are his ideal conditions. Spring ground, 2 miles, fast pace. He's had 2 really good runs this year. He gave Foxtail Hill all he could handle, and then he finished third over 2.5 miles, which probably stretches him. Then he blew out on heavy ground the last day. I wouldn't mind that at all. He's £6 higher than last year, which isn't ideal, but he is 16-1 as opposed to 7-2. So last chance, Le President. I'm going over the cliff with him on the last race of the meeting. So that's it.
Okay, well, hopefully you'll have got some winners on the board by that point, Brendan. Now for the best handicap bet of the week.
This will not be beaten.
Jimmy, what won't be beaten?
Scuateur and the Kinmure. You can win it this time.
Okay, he's not listening to Rob's advice. Brendan?
Dingo Dollar in the Ultima.
Okay, fantastic. And Rob?
Best handicap bet of the week, any second now in the Close Brothers on Tuesday.
Okay, fantastic. And your guys' best each way bets. We want as big a price as we can here. Jimmy?
Well, he's not huge in terms of his odds, but I do think Spirit of the Games has got a great chance of finishing in the 4.
Okay, fantastic. Brendan?
Chesterfield in the County Hurdle.
And Rob?
Yeah, at a bigger price. He's obviously got an awful lot of entries, but at Deal d'Estraval in the Coral Cup, he caught the Al Aste and he's as big as 20s.
Okay, before we say goodbye, we're just going to promo now the Racing Post Cheltenham Festival Guide, which I've got here. It's out now. It's available for just £9.99 on racingpost.com. It's available in all good bookshops and newsagents, and it's an essential punting tool for anyone planning to have a profitable festival, so don't miss out on that one at all. Now join us on Friday, of course, for the weekend tipping postcast. Make sure to tune in next week when we'll have daily shows from the festival, and don't forget to rate and subscribe to the postcast on iTunes. There's not long to go now.
Paddy Power are gearing up for Cheltenham and offering non-runner money back on all races at the Cheltenham 2018 Festival. Paddy Power, you beauty! Applies from midday on January the 9th. T's and C's apply. 18+. BeGambleAware.org.